men need to start realizing, okay, it's time to forget about the patriarchy and what the patriarchy told you, because the patriarchy told you that you need to suppress your emotions and you need to perform this unrealistic expectation of what masculinity is, but none of you are happy. All of you are empty and miserable and walking around like robots, really and truly. So get out of this system, okay? Because the patriarchy has damaged you. It's made you entitled. It's made you see women as sexual objects. It hasn't given you a fair chance in life. And now we have things like the male loneliness epidemic. But it's because men have brought it on themselves. It's nothing to do with women. Women are here trying to reach you guys, trying to feel you guys, trying to connect with you guys. But the patriarchy told you that you needed to suppress your emotions, that you needed to perform masculinity 24/7, and you can't be vulnerable and you can't surrender. Well, now we have these problems.
If I was to envision a future that was a lot better in the context of gender, it would be one where, you know, someone's quality of life isn't directly rooted in the gender they identify with. I think that's the most important thing, is that you're not more likely to suffer from something because of your gender or gender-based violence or femicide or even mental health. I think it's important for us to embrace even gender fluidity, right? I think there's many different ways we're all showing up and we're not bound by these rigid boxes that actually perpetuate the system. As much as we're all victims of a system, I think there's an accountability level there. And in that vision that I would love to have, I think it's also for women as well to see how our new status in society is impacting men. And I feel like I always try and stray away from the idea when we talk about women's rights or women's empowerment, we have to kind of be like, and what about the men? Because we're so used to being like, you have to bring them in. But it's clear that there's a conversation being had that we're not privy to. And no matter if it's true or not, they are internalizing something. And unless we have that communication, there's no point being right when you're not communicating, because we, you know what I mean, like when you're just shouting, they say when two people argue, no one knows who the fool is, right? So we need to be able to have that discourse for us to move forward and for our children's children, the next generation. So I'd love to pose it to you. What does like a future, right, in the context of gender that we would love to live in?
I feel like more conversations like this, more open communication, more kind of discussing what we can do as a collective to kind of overcome these issues, rather than just going, right, we're in a gender war, it's me against you. How about you learn what women want? How about you learn what men are looking for? How about we all do self-development? How about we all go on healing journeys? How about we take this stuff seriously? And men need to start realizing, okay, it's time to forget about the patriarchy and what the patriarchy told you, because the patriarchy told you that you need to suppress your emotions and you need to perform this unrealistic expectation of what masculinity is, but none of you are happy. All of you are empty and miserable and walking around like robots, really and truly. So get out of this system, okay? Because the patriarchy has damaged you. It's made you entitled. It's made you see women as sexual objects. It hasn't given you a fair chance in life. And now we have things like the male loneliness epidemic. But it's because men have brought it on themselves. It's nothing to do with women. Women are here trying to reach you guys, trying to feel you guys, trying to connect with you guys. But the patriarchy told you that you needed to suppress your emotions, that you needed to perform masculinity 24/7, and you can't be vulnerable and you can't surrender. Well, now we have these problems. So if we start now, and the younger you are, the better, right? And this is why I feel like Gen Z have got a great start at this, and this is why they seem to be having more better relationships and connections with people, because they have more knowledge and they want to learn and they want the tools and they want to, you know, Gen Z are doing therapy. So let's move with the times. Men, it's okay to seek help. It is not okay to suffer. There is no shame in seeking therapy, in getting a mindset coach, in doing things like that, okay? So I think once we do that, people are going to start feeling a bit more like, okay, we can connect with each other. Because there really is a wall, because men are not allowing women to reach them. They have this idea that, like, you know, if I tell a woman about my true emotions, she's going to use them against me. She's going to weaponize them. But this is what the patriarchy told them. Women actually want men to open up. Women actually protect a man's spirit. They want you to drop the mask and be real with them.
I would say
safer environment for men and a safer environment for women, right? Because when you look at who most men are murdered by, like they're mostly murdered by men. And when you look at who most women are murdered by, they're mostly murdered by men, right? So just taking it back like right to the root, like just safer environments for both is in thinking about why is it that, for example, a woman walking at home at night, if she sees another man, might cross the streets because she's worried about that she might be in danger. Why is it that, I think you mentioned before, like men who are rejected might move towards the right? Like why is there this entitlement, I guess, for access to women? A woman should never be scared of rejecting a man. I mean, there are obviously ways that you can say it, but you should never be scared of saying that you're not interested in someone because that's your own person, it's your own body, and it's your own personal space. So when I'm speaking about safety, I literally mean like being able to go out and do whatever the hell you want to do without being in fear of like whether you're going to get home that same night or not. And that goes to men and women because most perpetrators of violence are men. So just taking it back straight to that root, like just a healthier and safer environment for both men and women, essentially.
I think before everyone steps in, I just want to make a really big point before we move on. I mentioned before about gender fluidity and different gender identifications, right? And we have to be, we talk about safety and we talk about the trans community.
You're right, yeah.
That's a really big community that we have, that we can't forget in this discussion.
Yeah.
I know my privilege as a heteronormative, the gender I was assigned at birth is the gender I identify with, and therefore, even as a woman, I have a privilege in a society where my gender is recognised in a particular way. So we must also remember how the patriarchy does affect all these different people. Women do contribute to the patriarchy. There's no such thing as a patriarchy where the woman does not prop that up. We've always been collaborators with it, whether intentionally or not intentionally. So I just want to make sure, as we move forward this conversation, or as people have these conversations elsewhere, that we don't perpetuate those binaries. There's more than one gender involved. Safety is for all of us, and we all prop up. It's all in our best interest to dismantle the patriarchy. So I just don't want to forget like our trans brothers and sisters and gender neutral family in this conversation as well, because they're not here to represent themselves. And I wouldn't want a society where, again, it's heteronormative, it's gender bias again. So that's just my 2 pence in it.
I think for me, it would be a society where, like you said, there's no gender wars. People aren't against each other. Women aren't trying to come against men, and men feel, I guess, less threatened by women. It would be nice seeing media where it's more representative of, genders doing different things to kind of, again, break the patriarchy and break that down. Men being more open to having therapy and listening to women and not feeling the need to be this alpha male, and actually just, it's okay to be emotional and open up.
I think a key thing what will help societies, like you said, representation and media. I feel like even on the flip side of like the male gaze, like people might be divided on this. I feel like the representation of men, even in the Bible movie, like Ken was a bit like thick-skinned, like he was a bit stupid in the way he was, and like there wasn't really a balance. But obviously, that was obviously like a reaction to like hypermasculinity and like patriarchy, which is obviously understandable. But and it's also people who are in the spaces such as yourself or you, Ehiz, really representing well and having these conversations and creating safe spaces. We live in a time where there's just been a revival, particularly in spirituality and religion, whereas men and women have had enough. When they feel rejected, they lose themselves. There's no one to go to, and then they find themselves in like a church or a place of worship, and then they find community there. I know for me, like I find a real community in my church, and of course people are learning and unlearning in terms of representation of men and women in the church, but in a time where like I can have a normal conversation with a female and it doesn't have to be anyone trying to flirt or anything, but just making friendships, making friends, and also building these strong communities. And particularly definitely in media and having these right conversations, and also for young people just really to gather together in a safe environment and to talk it out. Men need to talk it out and not always just come together just to like play games and just like see who's matchup.
Me as a creator, as an online content creator and someone who's a public figure, it's important that I, make sure that I put out the right message. There's a saying that says whoever controls the media controls the mind. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are out there who've been put on a pedestal, you know, they have an opinion and they have a way of a method of approach that unfortunately people don't have a mind of their own, and they want to go and follow that, you know, idea of thinking, which isn't always the greatest, which can lead to, unfortunately, toxic, you know, conversations and things like that. But yeah, I think people should be more collaborative, and people should also understand that I am a man, you may be a woman, or you may have your own gender that you identify with, and we have our own qualities. That doesn't make us any different, that doesn't make us any less, but we can work together to see how we can both create a unit that can help society be a better place.